After 22 years of marriage, I discovered a betrayal that shattered everything I thought I knew about my life and my family. My wife, Lisa, the woman I had built a home and shared countless memories with, had been having an affair. That discovery marked the beginning of one of the hardest chapters of my life. It also became the catalyst for the boldest decision I've ever made, a decision that culminated in one unforgettable night. For over 2 decades, Lisa and I had what I believed was a strong, loving marriage. We celebrated milestones, raised our beautiful daughter together, and built a life filled with shared experiences. Sure, we had challenges like any couple, but I never doubted the foundation of trust and love we'd built. Lisa was my partner, my confidant, and the mother of my child. As Lisa's 50th birthday approached, I decided to throw her a party to celebrate not only her but the life we'd created together. I wanted it to be special, a night filled with love, laughter, and the people who mattered most to us. I worked tirelessly to organize the event, planning every detail down to the cake and decorations. Little did I know, while I was planning a celebration, Lisa was keeping a devastating secret. She was having an affair with a younger man, a man I later discovered had once worked for me. The truth came to light in the most unexpected way. One evening, I noticed Lisa's phone on the counter. It wasn't something I typically paid attention to, but this time, a notification caught my eye. I glanced at the screen, and my heart sank. The preview showed a message that made it clear this wasn't just casual conversation. Curiosity got the better of me, and I opened her phone. What I found left me speechless. Texts, photos, and even videos exchanged between Lisa and her lover. The messages were explicit, full of plans to meet in secret and professions of their feelings for each other. It was all there in black and white, undeniable proof of her infidelity. In that moment, my world crumbled. The woman I had shared my life with, the person I trusted implicitly, had been deceiving me. Anger, heartbreak, and betrayal washed over me in waves. I couldn't believe this was the same woman who had stood by my side through life's highs and lows. At first, I didn't know how to respond. I felt like confronting her immediately, demanding answers, and unleashing all the hurt and anger I was feeling. But then, I stopped myself. I realized that yelling and fighting would accomplish nothing. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing how much she had broken me. Instead, I decided to channel my emotions into something else, a plan. A plan that would expose her betrayal and let her face the consequences of her actions. And what better occasion than her 50th birthday party, surrounded by friends and family? It was a moment that would change everything for both of us. The days leading up to Lisa's birthday party were a blur of planning and preparation. On the surface, everything seemed normal. Lisa was excited about the party, chatting about the guest list, the decorations, and how special she felt to be celebrating such a milestone surrounded by loved ones. But beneath my calm exterior, I was simmering with anger and heartbreak. Every time I saw her smile or heard her talk about the party, I thought about the messages I'd seen on her phone, the photos, the videos, the lies. She had no idea I knew, and that made the betrayal sting even more. But instead of confronting her, I threw myself into crafting my plan. At first, I thought about simply exposing the affair through the evidence I'd found. I could have shown the messages to her family or confronted her during the party. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I wanted to do something bigger, something that would leave no doubt in anyone's mind about what had happened. That's when I decided to use the party itself as the stage for my revelation. I spent hours putting together a PowerPoint presentation. It started innocently enough, with slides highlighting the life Lisa and I had shared over the years. Photos from our wedding, family vacations, the birth of our daughter. Moments that symbolized the love and partnership I thought we had. But as the presentation went on, the tone shifted. The final slides contained screenshots of the incriminating messages, photos, and videos that Lisa had exchanged with her lover. To make things even more dramatic, I replaced Lisa's birthday cake with a custom creation. It wasn't just any cake, it featured explicit images from the texts Lisa had sent. I wanted to make sure the truth hit her with full force and left no room for denial. The night of the party arrived, and I'll admit, I was nervous. I kept asking myself if I was doing the right thing. Would this be worth it? Or was I about to cross a line I couldn't uncross? But every time I thought about the betrayal, about how Lisa had made a fool of me, I reminded myself that she had chosen this path. The party started off as expected. Guests arrived, laughter and chatter filled the room, and Lisa was beaming as she greeted friends and family. She had no idea what was coming. After dinner, it was time for speeches. I stood up, holding my glass, and asked for everyone's attention. I started by sharing heartfelt stories about Lisa, how we met, the adventures we'd shared, and the love we had built over the years. The room was filled with warmth and nostalgia as people smiled and nodded along. Then I said, "But tonight, we're not just here to celebrate Lisa's past. We're here to confront her present." I turned to the screen and started the PowerPoint presentation. At first, people thought it was just more photos from our life together. But as the slides progressed, the images and messages from her affair appeared. Gasps filled the room as the truth unfolded before their eyes. Lisa's smile faded instantly, replaced by a look of sheer horror. She stood frozen, her face pale as the messages scrolled across the screen. Some guests turned away, unable to look, while others whispered to each other in disbelief. And then came the cake. When it was wheeled out, Lisa's jaw dropped. The explicit images, boldly displayed for everyone to see, left no doubt about her betrayal. The room fell into an uncomfortable silence, broken only by Lisa's whispered pleas for me to stop. I wasn't done yet. I walked over to her, pulled out an envelope, and handed it to her. "Happy birthday," I said. "These are divorce papers. Consider this my gift to you." Tears streamed down Lisa's face as she realized the full weight of what was happening. Her parents rushed to her side, angrily condemning my actions and accusing me of humiliating their daughter. But my family, and even some of our friends, stood by me. They understood the pain I had endured and believed I had every right to expose the truth. Lisa didn't say much as the party disbanded in chaos. Some guests left in shock, while others stayed behind to offer me their support. I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. The truth was out, and there was no going back. The fallout from the party was immediate and chaotic. Lisa's parents were furious, accusing me of being cruel and vindictive. They shouted about how I had ruined their daughter's birthday and embarrassed her in front of everyone. But I stood my ground. "She ruined our marriage," I told them firmly. "I'm just making sure she takes responsibility for what she did." Meanwhile, Lisa was inconsolable. She sat in the corner of the room, surrounded by a few of her friends who were trying to comfort her. I could hear her sobbing, repeating over and over, "How could you do this to me?" The irony wasn't lost on me. She was asking me how I could do this. After what I'd seen on her phone. After months, possibly longer, of lies and deception? Part of me wanted to shout back, to tell her exactly how much she'd hurt me. But another part of me felt like the damage had already been done. I had exposed the truth, and nothing more needed to be said. As guests began to leave, many came up to me privately to offer their support. Some shook their heads in disbelief at what they'd witnessed, while others gave me knowing looks that said, "You did the right thing." Even a few of Lisa's friends quietly told me they had suspected something was going on but never wanted to get involved. Our daughter, who had been in the back of the room for most of the presentation, came up to me afterward. She hugged me tightly, tears in her eyes. "Dad," she said softly, "I'm sorry you had to go through this." Her words meant the world to me. If there was one thing I had worried about the most, it was how all of this would affect her. I didn't want her to feel caught in the middle or forced to choose sides. But in that moment, I realized she understood why I did what I did, and that gave me a sense of peace. Lisa, on the other hand, was left to deal with the wreckage of her own making. Her parents tried to threaten me with legal action, claiming I had defamed their daughter by exposing her affair so publicly. But Lisa stepped in and admitted everything, telling them, "He's right. I brought this on myself." That moment of accountability surprised me, but it didn't change the way I felt. The trust between us had been irreparably broken. In the weeks following the party, the divorce process began. Lisa didn't contest it. She seemed resigned to the fact that our marriage was over. She even apologized to me, admitting that she had been seeking validation in all the wrong places. She claimed the affair made her feel young and desired again, something she felt had been missing in our relationship. It was a bittersweet moment. On one hand, I appreciated her honesty. On the other, her reasoning only deepened the hurt. How could she not see the love and commitment I had shown her all these years? How could she throw it all away for something so fleeting? As for the man she had been involved with, I later learned he disappeared from her life shortly after the party. Perhaps the public exposure had been too much for him, or maybe he realized the chaos he had helped create. Either way, I didn't care. He was out of my life, and that was all that mattered. Lisa's relationship with our daughter also took a hit. She had tried to manipulate her during the affair, feeding her lies to cover her tracks. Once the truth came out, my daughter struggled to reconcile the image she had of her mother with the reality of her actions. It wasn't an easy road, but in time, I saw them slowly begin to rebuild their bond. For me, the months that followed were about rediscovery. I threw myself into my work, hobbies, and spending quality time with my daughter. I also began therapy, not just to process the betrayal, but to understand how I could move forward without carrying the weight of resentment. As I looked back on that night at the party, I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me was proud of how I stood up for myself and made sure Lisa faced the consequences of her actions. But another part of me wondered if I could have handled things differently. Could I have spared some of the public humiliation and still walked away with my dignity intact? Regardless, I knew one thing for certain: that night marked the beginning of a new chapter for me. One where I prioritized my happiness, my peace, and my relationship with my daughter above all else. In the months after the party, I began to rebuild my life. It wasn't easy, but I knew it was necessary. Letting go of 22 years of marriage, trust, and shared memories was like tearing down a house brick by brick. Some days, I was overwhelmed by anger and sadness, but other days, I felt a surprising sense of relief. I was free to move forward without the weight of Lisa's betrayal hanging over me. My focus became my daughter. She was my anchor during the most turbulent times, and I wanted to be the same for her. We spent more time together: movie nights, hiking trips, and long talks about life. It was during one of those conversations that she told me something I'll never forget. "Dad, I know what Mom did hurt you, but you've shown me what it means to stand up for yourself and what you believe in. That's something I'll always admire." Her words reaffirmed my decision to expose the truth. It wasn't just about revenge or humiliation. It was about showing her, and myself, that no one deserves to be treated with such disrespect, no matter how long the relationship has lasted. As for Lisa, she struggled with the aftermath of her actions. The affair partner had vanished, her relationship with our daughter was strained, and her reputation among friends and family had taken a major hit. To her credit, she didn't try to deny or excuse what she'd done. She apologized again and again, not just to me but also to those she had lied to along the way. Still, her apologies couldn't fix what was broken. Trust isn't something you can simply patch up with words. For me, moving on wasn't about holding on to anger, it was about learning to let go. I spent the next year rediscovering myself. I picked up hobbies I'd long forgotten about, reconnected with old friends, and even went on a few dates. I wasn't in a rush to find love again, but I was open to the possibility of building something real with someone who valued honesty and loyalty. Looking back, I've learned a lot from this experience. If there's one thing I can share with anyone who might be going through something similar, it's this: infidelity hurts, but it doesn't define you. You have the power to decide how you respond and how you move forward. For those wondering if I regret what I did at the party, my answer is complicated. Part of me feels like I could have handled things with more grace, maybe confronted Lisa in private or sought counseling first. But the other part of me knows that exposing the truth gave me a sense of closure I wouldn't have found otherwise. In the end, I don't dwell on what could have been. Life is too short to live in the shadows of the past. What matters now is the future I'm building for myself and my daughter. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever faced betrayal or had to make a tough decision in the face of heartbreak, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Let's support each other and learn from our shared experiences. If you enjoyed this story or found it helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And remember, life is full of challenges, but how we rise from them defines who we are. Here's to strength, healing, and new beginnings.